Hi, I'm Beth, and I'll be reading you today's e-edition of the Bourne Enterprise, dated Friday, January 3rd, 2025. And your first story is, the headline is Top Stories in Bourne from 2024. Number one, funding reached for Sagamore Bridge replacement. A federal grant to the tune of $993 million was appropriated for the Cape Bridges Replacement Project. The grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation's Bridge Investment Program was enough to cover the remaining costs for replacing the aging Sagamore Bridge. The cost to replace the 90-year-old bridge had been estimated at $2.1 billion. In 2023, the Healey-Driscoll administration won $372 million for the bridges from the Federal Multimodal Project Discretionary Grant Program. The Mass Congressional Delegation also secured $350 million for the bridges in the fiscal year 2024 Energy and Water Development Appropriations Act, which was signed by Joe Biden. When the nearly $1 billion award was announced in July, U.S. Senator Edward Markey called it Christmas in July on Cape Cod. Second top story, with Bourne's prohibition on marijuana retail sales repealed, the town took the next step towards opening pot shops. 2 marijuana retailers were chosen by the Bourne Select Board to enter into host community agreement negotiations for one of the town's 3 licenses. The third license was not awarded as the board opted to reconsider its selection process to ensure inclusion of a social equity candidate. Social equity candidates are defined by the state's Cannabis Control Commission as an individual or entity that meets specific criteria related to ownership, control, and residency, with the goal of promoting economic empowerment and representation for communities historically impacted by cannabis prohibition. 6 retailers applied for consideration for an HCA, with only one of the applicants being a social equity candidate, Bourne Canna LLC, also known as Stories Cannabis. BCL was ranked 4th following the scoring process, but a letter from the company's attorney argued that BCL should have received greater consideration given its social equity status. In a sudden twist, BCL withdrew its application, crediting the town with conducting a thorough, thoughtful, transparent, and well-publicized selection process. However, board members chose to follow the advice of Bourne Town Council Brian Bertram, who recommended the inclusion of a social equity candidate in order to more closely comply with CCC regulations. The board voted not to award HCA negotiations to Milo Greens, the third-place finisher following the scoring. A new request for applications is expected to be released with the hope of attracting a social equity candidate, which could be BCL or Milo Greens. Third story, after a lengthy search for a property on which to build a new fire station, the town decided to move forward with purchasing the property at 171 Clay Pond Road. A special town meeting will be held next Monday, January 6th, to request residents' approval to use $1.75 million from the town's capital stabilization fund to buy the land. The new fire station would replace the current station in Pocasset on Barlow's Landing Road, which was shuttered years ago due to flooding and structural concerns, and the call station on Thomas Philbrick Road, where firefighters assigned to Pocasset have been staying in emergency temporary housing. Number 4, the year 2024 saw a substantial amount of turnover at Bourne Town Hall and in town government, with a number of resignations, retirements, and appointments. Topping the list of town employees who retired this year are Bourne Fire Chief David Cody and Bourne Department of Natural Resources Director Christopher Southwood. Chief Cody served for 31 years in the Bourne Fire Department and was named head of the department in March 2021. Mr. Southwood was hired as interim DNR director in January 2019 and promoted to permanent director later that year. In September, former Assistant Fire Chief David Palazzi was appointed the new chief of the fire department. Hannah Lawrence has since been hired as the new DNR director, replacing Mr. Southwood. Resignations include former Bourne Rec Department Director Chris-Ann Karen and former Facilities Manager Sean Feeney. Ms. Karen accepted a new position as Assistant Director of Community Services in the town of Barnstable. Katie Matthews, formerly the Assistant Director in that department, had been promoted to Ms. Karen's position. Mr. Feeney resigned in lieu of being fired following his arrest in March. A Bourne police investigation determined that Mr. Feeney removed a box of fireworks from the Bourne Fire Department's headquarters, where it was secured without permission or legal authority. He was charged with larceny from a building, withholding evidence from an unofficial proceeding, and unlawful possession of fireworks. He was allowed to resign in lieu of being terminated, according to Ms. McCullum. The town subsequently hired Samuel Barrett in June to be the new facilities manager, but he resigned in late November and left the town's employ on December 9th. The town has since hired Jeremiah Jackson from New Bedford as the new facilities manager. Former Bourne health agent Terry Guarino was terminated in March. According to Ms. McCullum, Ms. Guarino was reportedly let go due to her questionable handling of a Board of Health matter in 2023. Ms. McCullum has not disclosed details relative to the issue, citing the possibility of litigation, and Ms. Guarino has declined to comment on the matter. Number 5, Election Day in May saw voters in Bourne make history. For the first time in the town's history, voters choose to elect a female supermajority to the Bourne Select Board. Voters returned Chairwoman Mary Jane Mastrangelo to the Select Board and voted newcomer Jean Azarovitz onto the board. Ms. Mastrangelo and Ms. Azarovitz joined members Anne-Marie Sarunian, Melissa Ferretti, and Peter Meyer to create the first 4-select-woman board in the town's annals. Another story, after many fits and starts, the infamous visitors' information booth that sat on the southbound side of MacArthur Boulevard just past the Bourne Bridge Rotary was finally moved. In early March, the historic structure made the journey to its new home on the grounds of the VFW Post 5988 in Gray Gables. Number 7, Republican state candidate Carrie McRae announced a legal challenge to the results of the September 3rd GOP primary election for the Plymouth and Barnstable Senate seat. Ms. McRae claimed there were substantial irregularities with the mail-in voting process during the primary. She requested a recount when results of the primary showed she lost to Matthew Muratori by just 48 votes. The recount resulted in a further narrowing of Mr. Muratori's victory to just 39 votes. In late September, Ms. McRae alleged that overwhelming, compelling, and troubling evidence was uncovered about substantial irregularities in the mail-in ballot process, particularly in Plymouth. Mr. Muratori is a resident of Plymouth. The legal battle, as of this writing, is still ongoing. Another story from 2024, a policy proposed by the Board of Directors for the Bourne Housing Authority permitting its maintenance staff to wear body cams when entering residence units was met with considerable pushback this year. In response, the Board of Directors chose to indefinitely postpone any vote on the policy. There was a major milestone for the Herring Pond Wampanoag tribe, with the tribe earning state recognition was realized in 2024. Governor Healy signed an order on November 19th, officially granting recognition and allowing the tribe to establish government-to-government relationship with the state. Former Air National Guardsman Jack Texiera was sentenced to 15 years in prison after pleading guilty to leaking classified documents containing national security secrets online. His prison sentence will be followed by 3 years of supervised release. Mr. Texiera, 22, was sentenced last month in federal court in Boston. He was accused of one of the most damaging U.S. national security intelligence leaks in recent years. And residents of and visitors to Cape Cod were subjected to learning a new traffic pattern around the Bourne Bridge Rotary. In late April, several weeks ahead of Memorial Day weekend and the unofficial start of the summer season, new travel lanes and markings were installed at the Rotary. Changes that drivers had to quickly get accustomed to included restriping the road going around the Rotary into 2 lanes and a channeled right turn lane onto the northbound side of MacArthur Boulevard to access the eastbound side of Sandwich Road, a rumble strip sections off the lanes. And this front page headline, residents dive into 2025 at the 28th Annual Monument Beach Polar Plunge. The new year began with a splash as roughly 275 people gathered on Wednesday to participate in the 28th Annual Monument Beach Polar Plunge. The beach buzzed with energy as children, adults, dogs, and even one person dressed in a full-body polar suit prepared to jump into the 44-degree water. According to club president Robert Bilodeau, the plunge started as a dare at a party. The first year was like 13 guys, and it's grown into this. We had close to 300 participants last year, Mr. Bilodeau said, greeting veteran plungers as he spoke. We've raised a little over $250,000 to date. We're on track this year to do another $42,000 to $45,000. In addition to the requested $25 registration fee, the club sells hats and T-shirts from previous years at the plunge. On February 8th, they will host a potluck party and raffle at the Weary Travelers Club to raise additional funds. All proceeds benefit the Bourne Friends Food Pantry. A lot of people donate a lot of time, Mr. Bilodeau said. I like to say it's a very profitable 15 seconds. Although significant, supporting the food pantry was only one of many reasons that inspired so many people to ring in the new year by taking the plunge. Janice Rogers decided on New Year's Eve over cards and cocktails with friends to attend, but credits the warmer-than-usual weather. At the time of the jump, it was 50 degrees outside, but it felt like 39. If this were going to be really bad pouring rain, we wouldn't be here. Diehards would be, but we wouldn't be, Miss Rogers said, noting that plunging was the first of many New Year's challenges that she hopes to pursue with friends by her side. As the clock inched toward noon, the anticipation was palpable. People began running in place and doing jumping jacks to keep warm. Others hollered as a man with a megaphone counted down the minutes. Finally, at noon sharp, participants took off toward the water as onlookers took photos and videos from the side. As Mr. Bilodeau alluded, many people ran out of the water after mere seconds, including one crying toddler who was greeted by a towel. However, others stayed for a swim, even cracking open beer cans and posing with the polar bear mascot. The event ended quickly as people, wrapped in towels, hurried to their cars to turn on the heat, but not before Mudslide, a yellow lab, dashed into the ocean to make his own plunge and welcome 2025. Another front-page story, two of Falmouth's native sons walked into Boston's gold-domed State House this week to swear their faith and allegiance to the Commonwealth and begin new roles in the Massachusetts legislature. Among the 40 members of the Massachusetts State Senate sworn in on January 1st was newly elected Democratic State Senator Dylan Fernandez, who now represents Bourne, Falmouth, Kingston, Pembroke, Plymouth, and Sandwich. Although he's not a new political newcomer, having served as a state rep from 2017 until this year, Mr. Fernandez is new to the state Senate and said he's ready for the change. I'm really excited to get started in my new role and grateful to the people of the district who elected me, he said this week. The New Year's swearing-in ceremony also included the 160 members of the Massachusetts House of Representatives, and among those troops were another Falmouth Democrat, Thomas Moakley, who is stepping into Mr. Fernandez's newly vacated representative seat. That seat represents the Barnstable, Dukes, and Nantucket district. The district encompasses Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, the Elizabeth Islands, and 3 precincts in Falmouth. It feels like a dream come true, and I'm very grateful to all of the voters and volunteers who made it possible, Mr. Moakley said. I'm excited to translate the themes of the campaign into lasting legislation and to be a bipartisan partner to my new colleagues across the Commonwealth. And looking ahead to 2025, as the new year commences, we look forward to continued coverage of news in the town of Bourne. Here are just a few of the stories we expect to keep our readers updated on in 2025. The first they list is the trial of former Selectman James Potter. That's scheduled to get underway on February 10th. Mr. Potter faces numerous charges relating to child sex abuse. The alleged offenses occurred during the years 2009, 15, and 22. Mr. Potter pleaded not guilty to all charges and was released after posting $20,000 bail on August 15, 2022. He was indicted in Barnstable Superior Court in February 23 and entered a plea of not guilty on all charges on April 18, 2023. The trial start date has been delayed multiple times. Most recently, it was scheduled to begin on Monday, January 6, but was delayed again to next month. Both sides have requested continuances for a variety of reasons, including turnover in the Cape and Islands District Attorney's Office. Mr. Potter was elected to the Select Board in 2018 and chaired both the Board of Sewer Commissioners and the School Building Committee, which oversaw construction of the new Bourne Intermediate School. The Massachusetts Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission, or the ABCC, continues to deliberate an appeal by the Liquor Sales Division of Market Basket, MB Spirits LLC, of the Select Board's decision to deny the retailer a liquor license to operate in the town of Bourne. Market Basket had proposed opening an MB Spirits store at the former Bass Shoe Outlet, located opposite the Market Basket grocery store on Factory Outlet Way in South Sagamore. The Select Board denied the company's proposal during its meeting on January 3, 2023. Select Board members said there are already 2 existing liquor stores in the area where the MB Spirits would have been located. Given that, the Board argued there is no need for another in the vicinity. 1 week later, the Select Board issued a liquor license to Katomet Fish Market. The Board agreed the fish market is in an area underserved in regard to beer, wine, and liquor sales. Market Basket subsequently filed an appeal with the ABCC. MBC Spirits presented its case before the ABCC during a hearing held in early December 2023. The Commission closed the hearing with no date certain for a ruling to be made, and the case has been under consideration since. Will construction of the new supersized Cumberland Farms on the southbound side of MacArthur Boulevard finally commence in 2025? Many of the impediments to the start of construction, including the historic Visitors Information Booth, as well as the row of buildings that comprised a small mall, have been cleared from the site. Still, construction has yet to get underway. Cumberland Farms plans to build an 8,100 square foot convenience store with 10 canopied gasoline islands holding 20 pump stations. The building is expected to house a fast food restaurant with a dining area. The project was initially approved by the Planning Board in 2017 with the condition that drivers cannot exit back into the Bourne Bridge Rotary. Instead, drivers wanting to go back over the bridge or access either Sandwich Road or Trowbridge Road would have to exit onto the southbound side of MacArthur Boulevard, go to a turnaround, and re-enter the Rotary from the northbound side of the highway. Cumberland Farms argued that not allowing cars to exit into the Rotary would jeopardize the company's ability to business. The amended plan for the project then includes a one-way only exit from the property onto the southbound side of MacArthur Boulevard with no re-entry into the Rotary. Attorney Douglas Troyer, representing Cumberland Farms, appeared before the Zoning Board of Appeals in August. At that meeting, he said the delay to the start of construction was due to ongoing negotiations with the Mass Department of Transportation. He said both sides are still working on an agreement relative to access to the Rotary as well as to the MacArthur Boulevard. Just as uncertain as the start of construction of the new Cumberland Farms is the fate of the historic Keene House at 9 Sandwich Road in Bourne Village. Will it be demolished by its current owner, local developer Vincent Michienzi, or will it be moved and preserved by the Bourne Historical Society? The Keene House was built in 1690, one of 3 homes in Bourne that were built prior to 1700s. Records show the home was built by Benjamin Perry, the youngest son of Ezra Perry, and his wife, Elizabeth Burgess. Mr. Michienzi has proposed construction of an affordable housing complex on the site, which would mean demolishing the structure. He requested $80,000 in Community Preservation Act funds for the project, but voters at town meeting in May rejected his request. The Bourne Historical Commission placed the home under a demolition order, and the Bourne Historical Society has announced it intends to move the building from Sandwich Road to the Abtuxet Trading Post property. The demolition delay order expired in May. Mr. Michienzi has refrained from raising the structure and agreed to work with the Historical Society as they press forward with moving the house. The Historical Society has secured $250,000 in CPA funds for the Keene House move, but has yet to find a vendor to relocate the historic structure. Development of the property at 2 Kendall Ray Place in Buzzards Bay continues to unfold. Revised plans for the complex named Crossings on the Canal were recently presented to and favorably received by the Bourne Planning Board in December. The approximately 4-acre parcel was initially approved for mixed-use development in 2022. The original plans of the applicant, Canal Cove Development LLC, were abandoned due to changes in both the residential market and economic conditions. A new developer, Crocker Design Group LLC, proposed a design that maintains elements of the previous plan but reduces the living units from 167 to 132 with rooftop spaces and more amenities. In November, the Bourne Conservation Commission approved a 3-year extension of Canal Cove's development's order of conditions, which was set to expire on December 8th. The development requires the Commission's approval because the work will occur in an AE flood zone. And Cape View Way, the new affordable housing complex in Sagamore Beach, is expected to open to residents by late March, early April. Potential residents have until Monday, January 27th to enter a lottery for the chance to live in one of the complex's 42 units. For more information about Cape View Way and entering the lottery, visit the HAC website or call 508-771-5400. In some other news, the Community Health Center of Cape Cod received a financial boost recently thanks to a grant from the Cooperative Bank of Cape Cod. On December 17th, the Cooperative Bank of Cape Cod granted $124,750 to nonprofits throughout the Cape through its charitable donation trust, the Coop Foundation. For fiscal year 2025, $10,000 was granted to support the Community Health Center of Cape Cod. The grant will be used to support the health center's Expanded Access in Sandwich campaign. The campaign will work to bring a new 19,970 square foot building in Sandwich to expand services to the community of Sandwich. The $10,000 grant will be distributed in 2 installments. Currently, the Community Health Center of Cape Cod has locations across the Upper Cape in Bourne, Falmouth, Mashpee, and Sandwich. The health center offers an array of services from primary care and walk-in care to optometry, dental services, nutritional services, and just about anything in between. The new office will expand these services to provide for the community of Sandwich. There is one health center office in Sandwich located at 90 Route 6A, which offers only primary care, behavioral health, recovery services, telehealth, and complex and specialty care. The Sandwich office is open Monday through Thursday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And here's a reminder from the Barnstable County's Cape Cod Cooperative Extension Service and AmeriCorps Cape Cod. They're teaming up with all 15 towns to offer the free Holiday Lights recycling program. Now through mid-January, residents can drop off old or damaged holiday lights at designated collection bins located at their local transfer station. The lights will be processed with recyclable materials recovered to reduce waste in Cape Cod landfills. And also a reminder that Cape Cod Hospital and Falmouth Hospital are in urgent need of blood donations, and several blood drives are being held across the Upper Cape this month to benefit Cape Cod healthcare. Cape Cod and Falmouth hospitals must have at least 1 week's worth of blood on hand at all times. Because each unit collected or purchased only lasts 42 days, it is a constant challenge to maintain sufficient blood. Blood collected at Cape Cod Healthcare Blood Drives stays on Cape Cod. All donors to blood drives in January will receive a Cumberland Farms gift card and complimentary beverage coupon. To make an appointment for one of the drives, you can visit the blood donor portal at capecodhealth.org/donor portal. And from the opinion page today, this editorial titled Our 2025 Nudge Word. When 2022 turned to 23, the Washington Post made a rather attractive argument against the concept of a New Year's resolution. Instead, it popularized the idea of a nudge word for the new year, a single word sort of mantra that is representative of the goals, values, and intentions we bring with us into the new year. Our nudge word for 2025, after much consideration, is metamorphosis. We stand on the precipice of a new year, a blank slate, patiently waiting for the unseen history that lies ahead to be inscribed upon it. What will it be? Who, what, and where will we be tomorrow, next week, this time next year? Maybe it is due to our love of writing, but this concept is one that excites us at the start of each year. Last year, our nudge word was hope, something there certainly was a lot of in 2024. The past 12 months contained multitudes, big changes, some unprecedented, others more or less expected, unfolded in every corner of the globe. We saw change in our newsroom and in our town government. We have elected new state and federal representatives that will take office in just a couple of weeks. The year 2024 was a year of action, no doubt. For 2025, the intention we set with the word metamorphosis is simple. We want to adapt. Metamorphosis, definitively speaking, is the process of transformation. Change begets change, as Charles Dickens famously said, and that mantra feels apt for the times we find ourselves in. In turbulent times, the role of local news is paramount. It keeps the public informed, and informed communities are key to maintaining a healthy democracy. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and as we usher in a new year, we think it is important to consider the effect the changes seen in 2024 will have on the year ahead. Local newsrooms like ours help bridge divides, foster community connection, share perspectives, and shed light on things like policy issues and the inner workings of municipal government. People need someone or something that they can rely on and have trust in during times of change. The enterprise, we think, can be and is that beacon of light through the haze. That being said, the questions we are entering this new year with are largely focused on our newsroom and how it relates to the community at large. What can we do better for ourselves, our community, our readers, and our neighbors? How can we rise to meet the challenges that lay ahead, whatever they might be? In what areas can we improve, expand, and grow? While we don't have resolutions for 2025, we do have a few wishes. May we embark on new journeys without fear. May we find new ways to heal, to overcome our differences or indifferences, and pioneer a new path forward. May we cultivate compassion and humanity in our hearts and remain open to new ideas, new experiences, and new stories from new people. May we have the willingness and openness to see the world from another's point of view and the courage to learn and adjust our own perspectives accordingly. May we have the malleability to transform our daily lives and structures, develop authentic ways of living and being, and find peace in this ever-changing world. May we work to spread peace in our world, across lands both near and far, and may we nurture the understanding and tolerance for each other that is necessary to do so. The world is what we make of it. 2025 is putty in our hands right now. The question is, what will we create? What do we want to see in the world? So here's to what we learned in 2024 and to what 2025 has in store for us. Happy New Year, Bourne. And here's a letter to the editor written by David Howell, who lives in Players Circle in Mashpee, titled Considering Daylight Savings Impact. He writes, about 2 months ago, this newspaper published my guest commentary arguing that to retain our current arrangement of timekeeping, despite 2 annoying Sundays each year, was far preferable to moving to daylight saving time or standard time on a year-round basis. The argument for retaining daylight time was easy to make. If we give up daylight time, we give up some 230 after-dinner daylight hours. Who wants to do that? The argument against full-time daylight time was a little more difficult to make, but for today and the next several days, the idea is easy to test, and I urge readers to do it. From now, today, and for the next several days, all of us will experience the latest sunrise time of the year. Soon, the sunrise time will begin to creep earlier and earlier until early summer. But for the next several days, the sun won't rise in our area until about 7:08 a.m. Now, if we had remained on daylight time in November, however, the sunrise time would move to 8:08 a.m. and the sky would be almost totally dark until 7 a.m. Readers should take a moment to imagine how their morning lives would be impacted by this change in schedule. Precisely 50 years ago this month, in early January 1975, Americans didn't have to use their imaginations at all. Congress had just passed a law returning the entire country to daylight saving time as a 2-year energy conservation experiment. The experiment was brief as the law creating it was repealed by the same Congress merely months later as representatives were deluged by heated complaints from angry constituents. Americans tried remaining on daylight time in the winter, and Americans hated it. The individuals who came up with the idea of daylight time were not politicians. They were thoughtful folks with an understanding of some critical astronomical principles, determined to create a system of timekeeping that, while not perfect, would serve the majority of us well. And they did precisely that. Again, that was written by David Howell, who lives on Players Circle in Mashpee. And we've reached the halfway point of our broadcast. I will now read today's obituaries. Ann P. Manton of Mashpee, a retired nurse practitioner who leaves family in Bourne, died at home on December 27th following a lengthy battle with cancer. She was 84. She attended Notre Dame Academy and MGH School of Nursing and earned degrees at Boston State College, a bachelor's degree in nursing, Boston College, a master's degree, the University of Rhode Island, Ph.D., and Fairfield University, psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. She spent her career as a nurse across a multitude of roles, including clinical nursing, academia, and positions of leadership in national nursing organizations. Dr. Manton continually strove for excellence, resulting in numerous professional awards, including induction into the American Nursing Association Hall of Fame, the University of Rhode Island Distinguished Alumni Award, American Nursing Association Massachusetts Living Legend Award, Gail P. Lenehan Advocacy Award, Emergency Nursing Association Lifetime Achievement Hall of Fame Award, and the Judith Kelleher Award. She served as the 1998 Emergency Nurses Association President, the Editor-in-Chief of the Journal of Emergency Nursing, Associate Professor and Acting Dean at Fairfield University School of Nursing, Assistant Professor at MGH Institute of Health Professions, and First President of the Board of Certification of Emergency Nursing. In retirement, she continued to work as an emergency department psychiatric nurse practitioner and was on the advisory board of the Cape Cod Community College nursing program. She leaves her children, Judy Wallman and her husband Tom of Bourne, Suzanne Foley of Bourne, and Sean Manton of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, 5 grandchildren, a sister, Susan Zeitz of Westwood, 2 nephews, and a large extended family. She was predeceased by her husband of 60 years, Joseph Manton, in 2023, and their infant son, Jay Manton. Funeral hours will be held on Sunday, January 5th from 1 to 4 p.m. at Chapman Funerals and Cremations in Mashpee. A funeral mass will be celebrated on Monday, January 6th at 11 a.m. at the Parish of Christ the King Church in Mashpee. For those who will be unable to attend in person, the Mass will be live-streamed at christhekingparish.com/live-streaming. Burial will immediately follow the Mass at Great Neck Woods Cemetery in Mashpee. Norman J. Durser of Bourne died on December 31st following a short illness. He was 78. Born and raised in Worcester, he served in the U.S. Navy with honor during the Vietnam War. After his military service, he applied his meticulous nature and skill to a career as an automotive machinist. He worked at C.W. Douglas in Buzzards Bay for many years before retiring. He enjoyed fishing and working in his garden. Mr. Durser leaves his wife of 55 years, Helen Durser, a daughter, Carrie DeGowan, and her husband Donald, and a granddaughter. He was predeceased by a brother, Robert Durser. A graveside service at the Massachusetts National Cemetery in Bourne will be planned at a future date. John Silveira, 90, formerly of Buzzards Bay, died on December 24th. He was born in Taunton on April 4th, 1934, where he was raised and graduated from Taunton High School, class of 1952. He later lived in Brockton, Nashua, New Hampshire, and West Yarmouth. He was the husband of his loving late wife, Shirley Perkins Silveira, who preceded him in death on February 1st, 2013. Survivors include his son, William Silveira, and his wife, Patricia of Uxbridge, a daughter, Kelly McDonald, and her husband, Sean of Auburn, 4 grandchildren, a niece, Paulette Von Ahn and her husband, a nephew, Bob Silveira, and his wife, Denise, and several great-nephews and nieces. In 1953, John joined the U.S. Air Force for a 4-year enlistment. While stationed at Port Austin, Michigan, at a NORAD Aircraft Control and Warning 754th Radar Squadron, ADSUM, John met and fell in love with his beautiful wife, Shirley Perkins. They married in 1956. Upon his honorable discharge in 1957, John returned to Taunton with Shirley while they awaited his employment with the FAA, which happened on March 5, 1957. They then proceeded to Oklahoma City for his initial training and then returned to Mass, and John was assigned to work at the Boston Air Route Traffic Control Center as an air traffic controller. Over the next couple of years, their children were born. In 1963, the FAA moved the Boston facility to a new facility in Nashua, New Hampshire, so John had to move his family to there. After about 12 years of controlling air traffic, he moved up to facility staff, eventually becoming a staff officer. After 32 years of service in the FAA, John and Shirley retired in 1989 and moved to West Yarmouth. After Shirley passed away, John sold the West Yarmouth property and moved to an apartment in Buzzards Bay, where he remained until he removed to Uxbridge in 2024, in September. Shortly after John became acutely ill, requiring prolonged hospitalizations, he was brought home on hospice care to his daughter's home in Auburn, where she was blessed to care for him until he passed peacefully in her arms on Christmas Eve. A funeral mass will be celebrated at 11 a.m. on Friday, January 17th at St. Margaret's Church, 141 Main Street in Buzzards Bay. Burial will follow in the Massachusetts National Cemetery in Bourne. In the following residents, former residents or family of residents of Falmouth, Mashpee, and Sandwich recently died. Visit capenews.net to read the complete obituary news stories. Charlotte Cotter, 94, of Falmouth, died on December 28th. David Fish, 64, of Falmouth, December 30th. Tashi Ford, 82, of West Falmouth, December 24th. James Kalparis, 95, of Falmouth, died on December 27th. Edward Matthews, 92, of Falmouth, December 4th. Leo McCarthy Jr., 88, of Franklin, December 27th. Gerald T. O'Connor, 75, of Mashpee, December 23rd. Mary Ouellette, 92, of Falmouth, December 22nd. Patricia Patterson, 78, of T-Ticket, died on December 27th. Lorraine Piccarilli, 86, of Falmouth, December 26th. Peter Palacci Sr., 70, of East Falmouth, December 22nd. Michael Richardson, 72, of Chelsea, died on December 27th. Frederick Webchopt, 81, of East Falmouth, December 13th. Jean White, 79, of Falmouth, December 6th. And Richard H. White, 87, of Sandwich, died on December 28th. Back to the news, and the following are excerpts from the Bourne Police Department logs dated Thursday, December 26th through Wednesday, January 1st. On Thursday, December 26th, police responded to a 4-car crash on Sandwich Road at 11:53 a.m. Police said the driver of a gray 2015 Ford F-150 pickup truck was traveling toward the Bourne Bridge. The driver, identified as Ricardo Bretto, 68, from East Sandwich, attempted to turn left into a parking lot and collided with a black Volvo that was traveling toward Sandwich. The impact caused the two cars to crash into a gray Toyota Camry and a black GMC Sierra that were parked in the lot with no one inside. No one was hurt, but the truck and the Volvo were both towed from the scene. Mr. Bretto was cited for an improper turn and a marked lanes violation. On Friday, December 27th at 3:47 p.m., a motor vehicle stop on Scenic Highway led to a citation. Police said that an officer on patrol was behind a black 2019 Dodge Ram van that was in the left lane and going 35 in a 50-mile-per-hour zone. The officer pulled around to the right side and saw the driver using a cell phone, police said. The van was pulled over, and the driver, identified as Josiah Swales, 23, from Falmouth, was cited for use of an electronic device while operating a motor vehicle, second offense, police said. An arrest was made at 5:57 p.m. in the parking lot of Bourne Scenic Park. Police said that an officer was dispatched to the area of Scenic Highway and Nightingale Pond Road on reports of an erratic driver. The officer located the vehicle, a brown 2011 Toyota RAV4, pulled into the parking lot of the Scenic Park. The driver, identified as Peter Savigny, 45, from Yarmouthport, was slumped over the steering wheel, police said. The officer woke the driver and, while speaking with him, detected signs of intoxication. Field sobriety tests were done, which Mr. Savigny failed. He was arrested and charged with operating a motor vehicle under the influence of liquor. He was later released on personal recognizance to a sober party, police said. On Saturday, December 28th at 8:55 a.m., police responded to a disabled motor vehicle on MacArthur Boulevard. Police said the car, a gray 2000 Volvo sedan, broke down in the Monument Beach area of MacArthur Boulevard. A check with the RMV determined that the vehicle's registration had been revoked for lack of insurance. The car was towed and a citation was issued to the driver for operating a motor vehicle with a revoked registration. Police didn't release the driver's name pending arraignment. On Sunday, December 29th, police made an arrest at 7:51 p.m. at a business on MacArthur Boulevard. Police said their officers checked the active arrest warrant list and saw the name James Pulitti, 41, from Bourne. Mr. Pulitti had an active warrant out of Falmouth District Court that charged him with operating a motor vehicle under the influence of drugs, police said. Officers went to his home and were told he was not there, that he was at work. They went to where he was working and arrested him there without incident. He was held without bail and transported to the Barnstable County Correctional Facility. On Monday, December 30th at 7:20 p.m., police made an arrest near the West Rotary in Buzzards Bay. Police said that an officer on patrol spotted a gray 2014 Subaru Forester on the Route 6 and 28 bypass road, traveling at 62 in a 40-mile-per-hour zone. The car was stopped and the driver identified as Corey McCulloch, 37, from Falmouth. Police said the officer determined that Mr. McCulloch had an active warrant out of Orange County, New York, charging him with criminal possession of a loaded firearm in possession other than in the person's home or business. He was arrested on a fugitive from justice court warrant and held without bail. He was later transported to the Barnstable County Correctional Facility to await extradition to New York. And on Wednesday, January 1st, an arrest was made at 9:37 p.m. on Colonial Road in Buzzards Bay. Police said that an officer was dispatched on reports of an erratic driver. The officer was able to locate the vehicle, a white 2023 Ford Transit van, parked on Colonial Road. The officer identified the driver as Jason Hammerly, 43, from Bourne. Mr. Hammerly showed signs of intoxication and failed to pass field sobriety tests. He was arrested and charged with operating a motor vehicle under the influence of liquor. Bail was set at personal recognizance plus a sober ride, and he was later released out on bail. In this story, Massachusetts Maritime Academy cadets are preparing to embark for the college's first sea term aboard its new training ship, the Patriot State. Cadets will spend 6 weeks at sea, leaving the Buzzards Bay campus on Saturday, January 11th, and returning on Sunday, February 23rd. The Patriot State was officially turned over to the custody of Mass Maritime and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts last October. Elizabeth Simmons, Vice President for External Affairs at MMA, said the ship will make its first stop in San Juan, Puerto Rico. From there, it will travel to Charleston, South Carolina, then south again to St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands, with the final stop in Tampa, Florida. Typically, they arrive in a port on a Friday, spend the weekend, and depart Monday morning, Ms. Simmons said. At any given time, 2/3 of the students will have liberty, and the remaining third stay on the vessel for maintenance, watch-standing duties, that type of thing. And here's today's weekly Nature Watch, written by Mary Richmond, titled A Change of Habit. By the time you read this, our yearly calendars will have turned the page from 24 to 25. We are a quarter century into this not so new century. Imagine that. And what a quarter century it has been. If, like many of us, you are concerned about what may or may not occur in the next 4 years in our government, you may be experiencing some anxiety and trepidation. Neither of these is unfounded, unfortunately, as promises to gut environmental, medical, occupational, and educational regulations, as well as innumerable human rights, are louder every day. After spending the last few months trying to balance my own emotional well-being by finding things to feel hopeful about, I have come to the conclusion that our individual actions will add up and help keep us all on a more even keel. There's a lot of room between a threat and reality, and we can use that room to make the changes we need to make on our own. We are not doomed, we are challenged, and I believe we can rise to the challenges being proposed. As a regular walker and nature journal enthusiast, I find a lot of comfort being out in nature. I can watch the squirrels and birds for hours, follow coyote tracks down the winter beach, and watch for owls and hawks along the salt marshes. I take notes, I make sketches, and contemplate many things on these walks, not the least of which is what I can do to make the world a better place. Many ideas or thoughts we have, myself included, are large and even grand. We want world peace, an end to gun violence, a sane, compassionate government for all. We want clean air and water, food that isn't laced with poisons or traces of plastic, clothes that are thoughtfully, carefully produced that will last a long time. Sound familiar? It's easy to get overwhelmed with a list like that. What can one person do? We throw up our hands and often give ourselves permission to give up. But what if we didn't give up? What if we each did one small thing to help change the world? We may not be able to bring about world peace, but we can educate ourselves and find ways to be compassionate and helpful in our own communities. We may not be able to stem gun violence, but we can join groups that promote education and good licensing practices for gun owners. We may not be able to clean up all the pollution, but we can do our share and work to stop creating pollution in our own yards, neighborhoods, villages, and states. We can stop using fabric softeners. If you don't know how bad these are for human health as well as the environment, I invite you to do a little homework. We can stop buying household cleaners and make our own. It's easy, cheap, and safe. We can begin to buy sustainably made clothing that may cost more, but will last much longer than most of the cheap clothing so readily available. We can replace plastic containers and storage bags with glass or metal ones. We can stop using fertilizers and pesticides and learn how to manage our gardens and lawns without them. All these things take time and effort. Some take a bit of money to get started, but we can just do one small thing at a time. Try taking a bucket on your daily walks to put trash in. Some like to use a pole grabber thingy while others just wear utility gloves. Study your garden catalogs and choose at least a few native plants this year, maybe adding a berry-bearing shrub or a native tree such as a dogwood or oak. Check to see which are native in your area. This goes for maple trees as well. Think about your wardrobe, the toys you buy for kids in the family, books, and even tools. We often buy books from local booksellers in our family and trade them back and forth, eventually sending them on their way with friends. This supports the writers, publishers, booksellers, and communities more than buying them from Amazon. Many of us use our town libraries or free lending services like Libby, as well as used bookstores on a regular basis, which helps keep the libraries open and gives old books a new chance at life. Join a conservation group and see what volunteer opportunities line up with your abilities. If you have no time, perhaps you have a few dollars to contribute to their causes. If you already belong to a group, maybe add another, perhaps a local land trust to support. We can join town committees, attend town meetings, and stay informed on what is happening nationally and internationally. We can speak up, write letters, show up for programs, and support or dispute what we see or hear in person. Every one of us can choose some small thing to change this year. For those of us who are already engaged in these activities, perhaps we can broaden our circles and include others who may not know how to move forward in this critical time. When in doubt or when you need a little extra motivation, get outside. Walk in a new place, discover a new area. Meet new people and have meaningful conversations. Better yet, invite a new friend or acquaintance to walk with you, to experience firsthand the joy you find in nature. Here's to a year of positivity, to picking up trash, to looking at the big picture while doing small things. Change can either sneak up on us or be determined by us. So let's not let someone else do the steering. We've got this. And that was written by Mary Richmond, who's an artist, writer, naturalist, and educator who grew up on the Cape and lives in Hyannis. And here's a column by theater reviewer Joanne Brianna Gartner titled Art Matters 2024 by the Numbers. In 2024, I wrote reviews for 16 different shows, 8 musicals and 8 plays. The 16 shows were by 4 theater groups and were staged at 3 different venues. It's too hard to pick a show that was my favorite. I can find something to like about almost every show I see. Instead, I will say that all of the shows I saw, the Falmouth Theater Guild's Clue and the Barnstable Comedy Club's The 39 Steps, were two shows that I went to see with very little expectations and came away enamored. If these two shows have anything in common, it's that they were clever, smart, fast-paced, and well-executed. And while I was familiar with the plots to both, I hadn't seen either before. The largest show I reviewed was Falmouth Theatre Guild's Willy Wonka, with a cast of 41. The smallest was Katuitt Center for the Arts' The Playground, with just one actor, the outstanding Anna Botsford. 9 of the shows were written in the 21st century. Of the 7 that were written in the 20th century, 3 were based or loosely based on works written in the 19th century. Fiddler on the Roof is based on a series of short stories by Shalom Aleichem, first published in 1894, while Stupid Effing Bird by Aaron Posner is a contemporary adaptation of Anton Chekhov's 1896 play The Seagull. Jonathan Larson loosely based Rent on Giacomo Puccini's opera La Bohème, written in the late 1800s, while that play itself was based on Scènes de la Vie de Bohème, a series of short stories published in 1851 by Henry Murger. Of the 16 shows, Clue was the only one based on a board game. 2 of the shows, Katuitt Center for the Arts' Legally Blonde and Fiddler on the Roof, were sold out before they even opened. Amazingly, David Kuhn, the center's executive director, noted that both shows had over 900 people on wait lists in case seats opened up. In terms of movie connections, there are several. Written as a play by Ernest Thompson, On Golden Pond was made into a 1981 movie starring Katharine Hepburn and Henry Fonda. The movie earned both Fonda and Hepburn Oscars, Fonda for Best Actor and Hepburn for Best Actress. Katuitt Center for the Arts performed the 7-person play in its Black Box Theater. Legally Blonde was famously a 2001 movie starring Reese Witherspoon. Katuitt Center for the Arts performed it on their main stage in Maine with the charming Johanna Stipatek in the lead role of Elle. The catchy, feel-good show would later sell out again in August when staged in Falmouth by the College Light Opera Company. Originally a 1915 novel by John Buchan, The 39 Steps is famously a 1935 movie by the great Alfred Hitchcock. The movie is far less comedic than the parody play written by Simon Corbell and Nobby Dimon. Little Shop of Horrors hit the big screen in 1986, starring Rick Moranis, Ellen Greene, and Steve Martin. The movie version features a significantly different ending than the musical one, which was performed at Katuitt Center for the Arts and the College Light Opera Company. Both stayed true to the original with their performances this summer. Upcoming in 2025, Falmouth Theatre Guild offers 2 premieres, Picasso at the Lapin Agile, opening January 24th, and Whistle Down the Wind in late April. Katuitt Center for the Arts offerings range from The Observe, Waiting for Godot, to the sublime Evita. The Barnstable Comedy Club will follow up on the comedic Into the Breaches, which opens next weekend, with a classic made famous by Alfred Hitchcock, Dial M for Murder, and Neil Simon's Laughter on the 23rd Floor. Also look for productions from the Sandwich Arts Alliance and the Woods Hole Theatre Company. Time flies, I think we can all agree on that. One way to slow it down is to step out of your element, maybe even out of your comfort zone, by going somewhere different or doing something different. That's why weekends when we go out of town seem to last longer than ones where we simply stay put. In order to make 2025 more memorable, I suggest you see a show, preferably something you haven't seen before. Being someone who at least likes to think I've seen my fair share of musical theater, I'm always amazed when listening to Sirius XM Radio's On Broadway at the shows that I've never even heard of, much less seen. There's plenty of them out there. You've got 12 months, but hey, who's counting? And Titcom's Bookshop will present author Lisa Genova to speak about her upcoming novel, More or Less Maddie, on Tuesday, January 14th at 6:30 p.m. at the Riverview School. More or Less Maddie is described as a breathless, riveting novel about a young woman diagnosed with bipolar disorder who rejects the stability and approval found in a traditionally normal life for a career in stand-up comedy. Maddie Banks is just like any other stressed-out freshman at NYU. Between schoolwork, exams, navigating life in the city, and a recent breakup, it's normal to be feeling overwhelmed. It doesn't help that she's always felt like the odd one out in her picture-perfect Connecticut family. But Maddie's latest low is devastatingly low, and she goes on an antidepressant. She begins to feel good, dazzling in fact, and she soon spirals high into a wild and terrifying mania that culminates in a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. As she struggles to find her way in this new reality, navigating the complex effects bipolar has on her identity, her relationships, and her life dreams, Maddie will have to figure out how to manage being both too much and not enough. Miss Genova is the New York Times bestselling author of Still Alice, Left Neglected, Love Anthony, Inside the O'Briens, and Remember, The Science of Memory and the Art of Forgetting. Still Alice was adapted into an Oscar-winning film starring Julianne Moore, Alec Baldwin, and Kristen Stewart. Miss Genova graduated valedictorian from Bates College with a degree in biopsychology and holds a PhD in neuroscience from Harvard University. Her TED Talks on Alzheimer's disease and memory have been viewed more than 11 million times. Now, if you're interested in the event, it is a ticketed in-person event. Registration is required and space is limited. Please register through Titcom's Bookshop's website or by calling the store at 508-888-2331. The price of each standard ticket covers event entry for one person and one book. Admission for 2 plus 1 book covers event entry for 2 people and 1 book. Please call 508-888-2331 with any questions. Each ticket purchased or book pre-ordered grants access to a Zoom discussion with Lisa Genova to further discuss More or Less Maddie at a later date. Again, this is going to be held at the Riverview School and space is limited. Riverview School is located at 551 Route 6A in East Sandwich. And a reminder that Bourne will hold that special town meeting on Monday, January 6th in the Bourne Middle School Gymnasium. The only article on the warrant is a request to appropriate $1.75 million from the town's Capital Stabilization Fund to acquire the property at 171 Clay Pond Road to build a new fire station south of the Cape Cod Canal. And the Bourne Unaffiliated Disorganized Pickleball Disassociation will hold the 8th Annual Polar Bear Pickleball Bash on Sunday. Pickleballers from all over the Cape and beyond are invited to join. The event will commence at 10 a.m. on Sunday at the pickleball courts at Bocasset Park on Barlow's Landing Road. And that's all the time I have for today. This is your reader, Beth, saying thank you for listening and thank you for your continued support as 2025 continues on. Thank you for supporting the Audible Local Ledger.